Welcome. This is For Better and Worth,
the podcast where we don't believe you have to sacrifice your relationship while you grow and build your net worth.
We are your hosts.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Ericka Young, and we're so glad you're joining us today.
All right, y'all, let's get into it.
Hey, honey.
Hey, we are back in the studio at it again.
Yes, and I'm so excited and interested in this conversation because I think it's going to be enlightening for us as well as those who are listening in. So, yeah, let's get at it.
I think as we have tried to, come up with topics and, script the topics for the next quarter, I look at them then, but when we sit down, I'm like, man, this is, I don't know. We have to talk about stuff.
It's deep.
Yeah, it's like, do we talk about this before or do we just go off the cuff?
Yeah, it's deep. But here's the thing. We always seem to have really good conversations in our prep time. And the coolest thing we'll let our listeners in on is that we actually sat down and really just strategized around our podcast and what we want to see and what we intend to do. And we're honestly going to keep it a little simple, and that's all good. But it was good. You had a really great idea to, look at the next quarter. So we plan that out, and we're just even more forward thinking than, let's say, the next month. So if you have suggestions and questions or ideas on topics, inbox us on Instagram or send us, an email. We would love to hear from you because we're always taking that into account because we want to make sure that it's relevant to our audience. And I think that's important.
We're trying to bring people what they want, but sometimes what you want isn't what you need. And so we also going to bring you topics that you need.
Yes, we love broccoli, but we are going to serve that thing up seasoned, well cooked. We're not eating the raw stuff. We just want to make sure that people...
I can't mess with that cold raw broccoli.
Unless it's the broccoli salad.
Well, that's different because you got
all the
bacon
stuff.
And you got
craisins and
you
almonds.
got a bunch of different stuff in there that compensate for the coldness. But when you're just talking about broccoli,
no one's just gonna chomp on a head of broccoli.
Not me. If you're gonna roast it and put some good seasoning on it, that's a different story. I can roll with that roasted seasoned broccoli.
So let's talk about our broccoli today, which is specifically unsaid financial expectations in a partnered up relationship and unrealistic financial expectations and how it can impact a relationship. I think that a lot of times when you and I are talking, I will unknowingly realize that I haven't said something to you that I thought I said.
You thought you said it to me, but you said it to me in your head. That's
right. I was talking to the head, my mental version of Chris, and then in reality version of Chris, he didn't know what was going on. Have you ever done that?
I'm just gonna say, people pray for me because.
Listen, no. Let's come on now, Christopher.
Crazy people stuff sometimes.
Okay, you know what? Haven't you? Listen.
Yes, I have created stories in my head that I thought, I shared things in reality.
Don't be leaving me out here by myself.
But it's like, wait a minute, no, I didn't even tell her that.
But say that. But then this morning I said something to you twice, and I was like, oh, I thought I just said that in my head because you were like, you already told me to feed the dog, and I was like, oh, I said it out loud. Okay, good.
Yeah, I was like, okay.
We spend so much time together that sometimes my thoughts, I think that there's something that has been said or it actually happened. And the good news for you is that some of these arguments that I have in my head don't actually become reality. So you know what? I spare you, when I'm upset sometimes.
Bless the Lord. But I think, we talk about unsaid or unrealistic. They all fall under the guise of like unmet expectations because whether they're unsaid or they're unrealistic, there's something behind it that leads to a sort of unmet expectation. And so, I got a question for you. When you think about that, in what ways could unrealistic expectations have an impact on a relationship, or more specifically, how have they impacted our relationship?
Yeah. So honestly, I don't think there's a lot we don't talk about. I think that there's a lot of times we put expectations on people that they are unaware of. And I do think that that is something that can come up quite a bit. But off the top of my head, to be honest with you, I don't feel like there's something that, in terms of finances, that I had that was, an unmet expectation of you to me or in our relationship. I'm gonna put my business in the streets because this is probably an this is something we have really talked about quite a bit. One of our unmet expectations probably falls in the category of um, chores and cooking,
Ooh,
and
Jesus.
and so we are mostly
This is about to get real, people.
we are mostly aligned on finances. But one of the biggest things for me is I don't mind cooking. I used to love cooking. I don't really feel like I love it anymore. I feel like I'm just tired of it.
It's funny that you don't love cooking, but what I've come to realize over these years is that you love eating.
I do. I love food. I do. And I'm also a person who doesn't want to spend the money. So here's the thing. This is the conundrum that I'm in, right? Is that I don't want to spend the money to go dine out all the time, but I also don't really want to cook all the time. And I also want to eat healthy. And I realize that those three things
That
put
is
a
a
lot of
conundrum for real.
it is an unrealistic expectation of myself, and I think it can become an unrealistic expectation that you might have of me if most of that responsibility falls on me. But my biggest thing is I don't want to spend all the money that it takes to go dine out, and I don't want to eat all of the categories when I'm out. And so I think that is one of the things in our relationship that has been an unmet or unrealistic expectation that we've had of one another, because I think that there are some unspoken things that you said about me. You want me to cook most of the time, and it doesn't get said a whole lot. If that makes sense.
Well, I have to gather my thoughts now. You said
I went
you
in.
said a mouthful right there, and what I've come to realize in this empty nest phase of our lives is we've come to what I call now we own. We own our own for meals. Okay, it's not proper English, but when you're hungry, figure it out. We own. We own our own. Oh no! You done had your chance.
Here we go. See,
You
this
done
the
had
real
your
deal. This the real
chance.
deal. Okay, we here.
And so I know that you say this all the time. Like you know you messed up now.
That's true.
You messed up
That's true.
because as my mother raised me as a young, independent male to not rely on any female for my personal and self-care, she also taught me how to cook.
Praise the Lord. I'm so thankful to Mary for that.
Right. And in that, I have exposed you to some of my cuisines over the years.
And this is the thing. If you never, not once, showed me that you are capable of cooking and that you wouldn't burn the house down and that the food that you put on the table would actually be good, that's where you done messed up. You done messed up, right?
So listen, brothers, if you're out there and you're in an early relationship phase before you get married, if you're going to cook, you better be committed to cooking long term.
I mean, here's the thing. You showed me
I don't mind cooking sometimes.
No, you showed me that you are capable, and so then my expectation was that it would be more often.
Right.
And that was an unspoken expectation. Yep. So then I might get disappointed if it doesn't happen more than I desire it to happen.
Man, I think it is so cliche when people ask, like, you guys been married for a long time. What's the one piece of advice you'll give to help someone who's new or early in a relationship? And I say it's cliche because I say the same thing every time. You better learn how to communicate, because if you don't, there's going to be some long days, some long nights. And this is what we're talking about.
Right.
Because you have unmet expectations or unrealistic expectations because you haven't talked about it. You haven't communicated about it. And when I think about this particular topic and how it can impact a couple relationship, is that you have two people going in different directions. Mm-hmm. And they can have competing priorities.
Yeah.
Because like just as this, we'll go with this example. Just like if it comes to cooking, like the priorities that we both want to, eat. We want to eat healthy meals. We want to be value conscious. We don't want to dine out. I'm okay dining out a little bit more, just because I think it takes away some of the frustration. We don't have to. One, we don't got to cook. We don't have to clean, and we could just focus on conversation. When we dine out, that's what I'm looking for, is for us to engage and talk to one another. We're not on our phones. We're not doing something else. We remove the distraction. So to me, dining out for me is a relationship builder. But you can't do that all the time.
Right.
Because one, depending upon what you're eating, you might be big as a house, or you
And
may.
what we're not gonna do is do
Right.
that.
What we're not gonna do is either of us be big as a house.
Right.
So yeah, I love my big people out there. But
But I love food quite a bit, and that's the honest truth. I do. I enjoy it, and at the same time, I know that I don't make great choices when I'm out to eat. And if it's good, I really want it. And if there's dessert, I want that too. So let's
Yeah.
just be honest. It is a treat, and I have
yeah,
to be prepared.
It could be a trap too. So
And the places we go, they're not like fast food. We like to sit
right, you want to
down.
sit down and enjoy yourself.
The
and
two of
have
us
have some conversation.
Yeah, I mean, and then it's not like we're always getting a glass of wine or anything like that, because frankly, we can go somewhere and spend $80, $100, and not even have gotten any alcohol.
Right,
You know?
right. But I think when you talk about income or housing, children, chores, because we're talking about chores, I think we're really aligned around finances. But I think there's even areas there that we'll be able to get into. If we are on different pages and we have different expectations, I think no matter what you're talking about, if it's income, if it's housing, children, chores, you really can have someone who has no boundaries in one of those areas.
Yeah.
Because if it's like house, we got to get the biggest house that we can possibly afford, because somebody's thinking maybe future appreciation or future family size or any of those things. So they remove the boundary with that, where someone else could be like, no, we've got to stay within our budget, start thinking about long-term plans. And, if it comes to children, there's always, I think, well, not always, but there can be someone who's like, well, the kids need this, or the kids need that, or the kids need this experience, and you remove those boundaries.
And I think when they're unspoken, I think this is you say this all the time, is that it's all about communication. And when we don't share what we desire or what our thoughts are, and we assume our partner knows that we're actually on the same page about it or what have you, if we make the assumption that we see aligned in this, then that's a problem, because sometimes we don't see aligned in this, right? Sometimes one person is like, I want the biggest house we can afford, and the other person is like, but my priority is to save. And if they don't say those things, then they will never be able to come into an alignment. And so you have to actually say what you're thinking in order to find some resolution. And that is, I think, the biggest thing here is just to make sure that it is spoken versus all in your head.
Look, boy, you can let some things go on in your head, and you're like, you created this whole story. You got a whole community and village. And
I've done that. Have you done that? You've done that.
Yeah. I've done that. I've done that too.
You know what?
Yes, I've done that. Thought I was telling people things, and yep. So moving right along, people.
So have you ever felt like you actually had some financial expectations in our relationship that were unmet?
I will say yes.
Okay.
And to build on that, I think there were a couple times in our past where I felt like we needed to just be saving like gangbusters. And you were like, well, it doesn't take all that. We don't need to save like that. Or why do we need to have X number of dollars saved up? And in all honesty, I couldn't give you a real reason why.
Yeah.
I just knew, like in deep down in my soul, I just knew that we needed to be saving at a higher rate than we were.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about like retirement. We've always been really good about doing retirement savings. I was talking about just like saving
An emergency fund.
emergency,
Yeah.
liquid cash, just building up a reserve. And it wasn't until we reached a couple of different milestones. Well, I wouldn't even say milestones. There were a couple things that happened. And then it was revealed why we needed to be saving.
And here's the thing. This is what I appreciate about you is that I know, one, you hear from God, and I know that I can identify that was literally Holy Spirit just telling you this is something that we need to do. And so I respected that, even though I didn't understand or I disagreed.
Right.
Like, and so what's interesting is that what I'm hearing you say is that the expectation was that you come into alignment quickly, but it didn't happen quickly. Or for me, it had to happen when I actually saw it. It like for me in that moment, seeing was believing. Like it was probably 6 months later when we actually understood why.
It was clear when it happened.
Exactly.
But in the moment, it was kind of hard to be like, well, hold on, why?
Right.
Because if we're saving all this money, that means we're sacrificing something else, or we can't do this, or
Right.
we can't do that. And I was like, look, I don't know what it is.
Yep.
I just know this is where we need to be.
And I respected it enough to not sabotage. So though I didn't probably respond initially in the way, like in total, like, okay, let's go. I was, held back, and I was like, well, I don't understand, or this doesn't make sense. But I didn't sabotage it with my behavior. And I think that can be the key too, is I respected that this was something that was really strongly on your heart. And I wanted you to feel successful in that. I just didn't understand at the time. And there was no undermining the situation. And I think that's the key, is that we don't want to undermine each other.
Yeah, I think you bring a very good point there, is that in relationships, it's so important. Whether you agree or disagree, you can't like sabotage or undermine your partner, because you're really sabotaging and undermining yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's going to all come out in the wash, and, you're going to have to pay the piper at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, has there been a point when you had financial expectations that you felt weren't being met along the way?
Well, here's what's so funny that you brought up the saving emergency fund, because I'm clearly not a short-term saver. Even today, I'm good. Like I know what it means to have, and I know how important it is to have an emergency fund, but my focus is always on the future. So I have always been a person who wanted to be saving for the future, and I would be willing to sacrifice lots of things. So like, so for instance, saving for college, we started doing that when our kids were younger. But here recently, our girls have had, they have gotten scholarships, and I wanted to save for, save a bit more into an account that may or may not get used. And so my expectation was that we would save this for the college education, or continue to do that even though scholarships were had, so that we can save on taxes.
Yeah,
and that was something where we disagreed, right? And so I was like, so my expectation of being able to continue to do that was not, it just wasn't met. And so, and, future planning, I have fought, me, like I have fought from the very beginning to make sure that we just stick with our retirement planning. We've never stopped it or anything, but I've had to really say, like, I think we need to expand or do this different, or, do more here and there, because I'm looking forward thinking into investing as opposed to the short term. And so we've had some differences in how we've seen these things, but I think the good news is that we have respected one another's ability to have a differing opinion, and that has been really good to work through, I would say, because it's not, none of what we have ever talked about became a life or death issue. And so most of the time it worked out just fine in the end.
Yeah, and I think, and the good thing is these things that we're talking about, they were benefiting us both.
It always does,
Yeah.
right?
They were benefiting us both because they were benefiting, the short term savings and the long term savings, because you really have to have both of those working in tandem. And so it's interesting how in a relationship you need the yin and the yang. You need sometimes, conflicting, well, not conflicting, but
Differing views.
counter and differing points of views, because if we were both only focused on short-term savings, then maybe we would have not, invested in our long-term savings, and vice versa. If we were only focused on long-term, we could have sacrificed on the short-term. But the fact that even in this thing where we felt like we weren't getting, the need met, we were both focused on something different. So it forced us to look at those in a bigger context and make adjustments in that way. So
Yeah.
that's a very interesting point. So
Yeah. I'm curious. I feel like I haven't thought this or felt this, but I'm curious on, have you ever thought that there was this competing, because you that word came up for you, that competing idea or notion, or that there was in some way, in one of these ways of expectation, that we were competing for one. It can be a power struggle, right? When you're
yeah,
competing against, or you're fighting against your spouse, this is a power struggle. Something is at play. Something, we both want something and we think we're right. And we're smart people, right? So I'm just curious on if you felt that way.
that we were competing.
Compete, that word.
That's I know I said it, but I never thought about it like we were, kind of trying to go at it.
Yeah.
But
I think couples do. I don't feel like we have competed.
I don't feel like we've competed. But it's interesting in relationships, because depending upon the phase you're at in your relationship, if you're somebody who's just met and maybe you're getting into that longer term portion of your relationship, but you're still like maybe not fully, maybe you're not married. People can be committed and not be married yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I think sometimes if you haven't reached that point where you have made that commitment to be married and you've put everything together and you're building on something, people want to look out for themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's where competing comes into play, is like, look, if this don't work, I got to make sure I have some fallback. I got to take care of myself. And that's when you have, your little slush fund, little stash over here.
Yeah.
And that's when it becomes, I say, negative or derogatory, because it's not helping us both.
Right.
It's just taking care of you or the other person. And so, yeah, I think we both agree that we personally haven't really been competing. It's maybe our focus was on something different. And those focuses were both important, but they just kind of, took a priority or took precedence for us in, like me, the short term, you, the long term.
Mm-hmm. I will say that, let's be frank and honest. Like, we have had moments where in the early part of our relationship, I made more money, and now in this other part of our relationship, you've made more money. And I will be very honest and say that you being the breadwinner has been motivating for me. It's like, okay, it's not like I'm trying to make as much as you do, but it helps me keep it in gear. Let me put it that way,
Yeah.
because I'm not in business to I'm not in a and people say this, it's not a nonprofit.
It's not a hobby.
That's it.
You're not making money. It's a hobby.
That's right. We're not talking, because nonprofits make money, but it has been motivating. So it's not demotivating, or it's not feeling like we're in competition, because I definitely don't feel that from you. But I absolutely say, what can I do to add value? So when we're talking about our annual goals, and I bring in the thought process, what if I brought in more money? Got a new contract, or had this, new contract that comes in that I didn't have before. And then that takes us to a new level. It like, if we can do this on our budget, what's possible I kick myself in the tush so that I can actually do a bit more, so that we can do more in our financial arena. That's the way I see it. I feel like the word for me is motivating versus competing.
I think you open a door that before I walk fully through, you talk about being the primary breadwinner. I go back to how, you think there's pressures in relationships and how do you feel pressures and, trying to match successes or financial successes. I think, I put pressure on myself to feel like I had to be the breadwinner. And even before that, there was a time in our relationship where, from the financial expectation sake, I felt like I sacrificed because, we both were working, careers. You were an engineer, I was in sales. And there was a point, like you said, where you did make more money. And, I got so many thoughts right now. I got to keep them organized. There was a point where, you made more money than I did. But that point, it was like short because then you left your job.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, man, this girl, she want to leave her job. And it was fortunate that we were able to do it because...
And we worked through that as a team. We did.
Right. It was fortunate that we were able to do it because we got out of debt and then it opened that up. We'll have to circle back to that. But I think at that point, it was clear like, okay, I have to make sure that I provide for my family because at that point we had, 2 kids. And I was like, I got a wife, I got 2 kids. I got to make sure everybody eat.
Yeah.
I got to make sure I take care of everything. So I felt a lot of that pressure I put on myself to be the primary breadwinner. And that was a driver for me, to go out and conquer in the world and, be able to bring, home. Like, here's this, here's 6 packs of bacon, cook this up, baby. But, she used to cook the bacon back in a while back. Now she don't.
Yeah, I'm not cooking no bacon right now. Mm-mm.
She still cook bacon, but she don't like to cook it as often.
That's right. Thank you for that. Because
we eat more turkey sausage anyway. But the whole point around, the expectations, I think I put some of it on myself.
Yeah.
And I know you weren't putting it on me, but when you started to change your mindset, like, look, I'm in business to make money. Mm-hmm. I'm not out here. This is not a hobby. I can say I appreciated that. Mm-hmm. Because I think in some relationships, the wife or the spouse, because I know there's relationships where the woman is the primary and the man is the stay-at-home. I think that's more rare than, the woman being the stay-at-home. But some of them don't expect to contribute. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you went and started a business and you were like, look, I'm going to go out here and make money. So I'm like, look, go on out there and get it, babe. Give her
you are
slap on the butt. Like, look, I be a kept man. If you go and you make all this money,
let's go. Maybe one day we'll do
you.
it. We'll do it.
Take care of me because I like to eat and drive and dress.
You know what? If I was a primary breadwinner, when that let's say if that were to happen, what I would do is make sure that we had somebody cooking meals. Like, I need to have enough money coming in.
I'm still not gonna cook every day.
Because that's right. See,
because I would be off doing what I want to do.
You see, right?
I'm a golf more.
I cannot expect.
I'm gonna go to the gun range.
For real, you're gonna be out in the streets doing all these little hobbies.
I'll be doing all the stuff I want to do. Like, yeah, girl, go and get that money. Mm-hmm. Why am I here enjoying it?
Listen, we are now empty nesters. I need you to keep your job. I'm not about to retire you. I need you to keep working. Okay. We both need to be working right now. Okay. But you know what's so funny? It's not funny, but it's interesting, I'll say, is that
it's funny. It's funny, but not funny.
No, for real, because I do think that expectations, when we're talking about an imbalance in income, that there are expectations that people have. A lot of times I'll see folks who have expectations of the partner who is not making a lot of money. They should be doing more around the house. They should be, doing or managing your money or not spending a whole bunch of
Yeah.
it, right? Like there's that expectation on the flip side, you know, the person who's making a lot of money, you know, their expectation might be that they can kick their feet up when they come home. And it might be, you know, like there's a lot, we put these expectations on one another that just aren't said. And we haven't gone here yet today, but I feel like sometimes if it's unsaid, it's unfair. We are
I
not
know.
we're not doing our partners any favors.
It's not helpful.
It's not helpful. It is not helpful at all.
Yeah. And I think sometimes when there is a discrepancy in incomes, you know, the person maybe who earns more thinks like, look, I can dictate what we do
Right.
with the income
That
because,
part.
look, it's our money until you try to tell me what to do.
Right.
And I get up and I go to work. I earn, look, this is my money.
See?
And this is what we not going to do.
That's
is,
a real thought process, Chris. I
Yes.
promise you. I promise you. And it devalues the person who is bringing other value to the relationship, and it's not operating as a team.
look, relationships are complex.
They are. They really are.
Look, if you listen to this podcast, be sure that you sure. Know what you're getting into because look, if you get the wrong person, ooh, Jesus, that could be hell on wheels. That could be nightmares.
It's true. And you know what?
You're waking up in a cold sweat.
Right. You're not real sure what's going to happen tomorrow. And I think this is the thing, if we can really understand that, and our podcast is called For Better and Worth. And when we say marriage vows, we say for better or worse. And we have all of these.
Or richer and poorer.
Right. And we say these things and we never really think that it's going to happen. Right. In
You don't think
sickness
about
and
the
in
worst.
health.
You don't think about the worst.
No,
You only
don't.
focus on the better.
And you only focus on the rich and you only focus on the health. And the challenge is that if you love someone, you will think the best of them. And that, I think, is the hard part in thick and thin, right? Is thinking the best of your partner, thinking that they want what's best for you as a family and all of that. And I think if we can go to, you know, understand that because I love this person and they love me, let me trust that their motives are pure.
Yeah.
And check your heart on your own motives. Like, why is it that you're expecting these things? What makes that true for you? And can we break down some of the things that are separating you from your partner in that way? That's the key. And so we've got to take those things, I think, a step further because our marriage vows almost become obsolete when we are in the middle of our relationship.
I feel like we could go on and on talking about this topic because there's so many layers and there's so many levels to this when you get into it because there's unspoken expectations, there's like these self-imposed expectations, and then there's the unrealistic and the ridiculous expectations
Right.
of what your behavior should be in a couple relationship or what you should be able to do or how you should be able to live because I know I see people all the time and I'm like, man, they driving this or they're wearing that and I may not know all the details of their income, but sometimes, you know, there's a discrepancy between what you're driving and what you're wearing and what you're making because you know, it's one thing, you know, to fake it till you make it, but it's another thing to fake it and put it on debt because you're trying to do and live
Beyond
to somebody else's expectation.
Ooh, people you don't even know or care about.
Right. And so it's just this is interesting, you know. We may have to pick this back up.
Let's do it.
Another day because I'm just sitting here and swirling because thoughts are all in my mind. But let's talk about right now, like, how can those that are listening right now, how can they make it worth it to get over the unmet expectations? And I'm going to add trap.
Yeah.
Because it can be a trap because if you don't deal with this, it can really take you down a road that cannot be the road that you want to go.
Yeah.
So what would you say is your make it worth it for this?
I would say no matter what the expectation is, unmet or unrealistic or unspoken, make sure that it doesn't get unhealthy. How about that?
That's good.
So let's think about how can we add value to the health of the relationship, the health of your bank account, the health of your family, versus focusing on so many things that are unspoken or, unrealistic. How can we focus on positive moves that are going to get us advancing in the right direction?
All right. I will take that. That is very good.
Yes, let's go. So what about you, babe? How would you make it worth it?
If you think it, say it.
Ooh. Ooh.
Make it simple, because like you had this whole story going on in your head, and you answering yourself.
I have done that too. See, don't think I'm crazy, but the truth is,
I'm like, people will. It's like ask and answer.
I got some good
by yourself.
I have some good conversations going on in this head.
Right, but if you think it and it relates to someone else, you can have conversations with yourself. But if they involve someone else, involve a partner in action or behavior that they're exhibiting or that you want to see them exhibit, then you need to say it.
And find a way to say it in a loving and productive way.
I think that's why it goes with what you said. Don't make it unhealthy.
Yes.
But if you're thinking it say it in a way that it doesn't become unhealthy.
There you go. I love it. Well, this has been fantastic, husband. I feel like every time we learn something right along with our listeners. So it's been a good one.
Yeah. So look, people, just continue to press that play and get this content. And until next time,
we're out.
Thank you for spending some of your time with us today.
We appreciate all of your support. So be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
You can find us on Instagram at For Better and Worth.
And sign up to receive our free guide, The 7 Reasons Your Money Relationship Isn't Working with Your Partner, on forbetterandworth.com.
Until next time, we're out of here.